Uh, Hello everyone. Um, that is my nickname. I used to play video games. I thought I would speak a little bit about hell. I've had some dreams before, and I like to describe two of the dreams. I can take you through some of the aspects of hell and things that happen, how some things work. I mean, take it or leave it because it's only a dream. But without further ado, I'll get into that. Now, the first thing that I have to do, I was instructed by a demon. I have to do some certain thing that it had come up with if I wanted to talk about this. That's what it told me. So I'm doing that right now and can't see it, but uh, in that dream, it'll be about hell. Another dream is like a futuristic war kind of thing, but inevitably becomes related to hell. So that's why I'll be, you know, if you want to donate some money for my art and my YouTube uh, experimental kind of video here, then I'll leave it in the description. That'd be awesome because I need some money and I got major depression, so um, struggling with work and stuff. But anyways, um, whenever you go to hell, it's always initiated by electronic device that's high up dimensionally. That is your link to the hell area. It only works that way. It's always called via cell phone, essentially, to its location. And I didn't just fall right into hell, but I was able to find where it was, inevitably, which wasn't like very pleasing. It seemed extremely boring that I was going that direction. But when I had arrived onto the ground, that's when a war began between angels and demons. The angels were always trying to make me look at a spherical kind of object that was in the air, like 10 feet or so in the air. And this object would be a representation of like a time traveling device to go to a different part of the world. But if you were to try that though, it became impossibly difficult. And as that happened, that's when the demons started leading me in to show me stuff. And the way that worked is it was only a feeling, no instructions, nothing. Just a feeling that you were going to get some sort of tour or something. And hopefully, you know, this wasn't the end because you still had interests, of like worldly interests, things like that. So, that's like the ground level. Now, in the other dream, we always started from a lake. It is always our rendezvous point. There was a summons for, citizens to go to war. So we always started from a place of depth, and then from that point, we worked our way into like an open area, then some mountains. But first, um, we went to Tarragon after the initial area. It began to be an upward slope. This is Tarragon. After all of these slopes and areas, which was a greater space than the previous one, came Tophet. This was the mountain area. You could have, great woes and stuff could happen. Stomach aches, injuries on the mountain. Some people fell off of the mountain. At this point, there's a grid system to the right of us, of the mountains. This is where some of the Christians escaped. They went to electronics, basically, and it hid them out from a part of the war that was going on. Uh, but after all the mountains came like sort of a valley area and a city. The city was before you got to the valley area, but the city was really a small area. The area that goes on went beyond the city was like a wilderness almost. You see, and so that's where there became a divide because people were trying to start living life and stuff. This is what was happening, and so you had the city dwellers and you had the people who tended to go towards the wilderness area. But the okay, so I go back to the other dream, right? So in hell, the demons leading me to the gates. There actually are gates. At this point, the fear kicks in. The fear really kicks in, and I was freaking out. But I was led by this demon who was walking in front of me, who seemed to disappear at times. This started to trip me out. Like, weird things started to happen, sort of like glitches. And I started to realize, like, I was going to be shown stuff in hell if I kept going. But the most weird thing about it, even though I wanted to turn around and go away, every time I would think or try to do that, it'd be extremely difficult. It felt like the most difficult thing ever to do. But when I was walking towards behind the trail that he was inevitably leading, it felt, easy and stuff, like you were just walking. So eventually, like, I became guided into this thing. And beyond the gates, I was able to see there's like different realms to it. You know, like at the beginning parts I was always shown something by the evil force that looked like something the good force would do, like a past memory or something like this. It would show me this, and after I sort of walked my way through that thought, it would lead me into the next thing, you see? So it was like scary, but then it wasn't scary. It kept like changing. It was so weird. But you have to understand things about demons is they're always working in um, they're always working with at least one other demon, if not a group. They never like to fight or do anything just by their own self. That's a disadvantage. So they're always basically like scouting for angels is what they're doing. And what I noticed was on occasion when I saw them trying to fight each other, they would always prefer to jump off of the ground in the fight to start fighting. They never wanted to fight on the ground because they knew that if the angel was stronger or the group was doing better at the time, they're at a terrible disadvantage of fighting like standing versus each other. So they would always try to jump off of the ground, I saw. But I mean, I couldn't do anything like that. I mean, let alone try to fight one, which I did try to fight, but it's just embarrassing. So basically, I was just shown a whole bunch of stuff. But it's interesting because the analogy of the different places, like areas, in the other dream matched a hell experience, while when I was going through a tour, it was like descending like levels, like slopes almost. It was always going like a slope downwards when you show different places or different areas or things even. So what I noticed was you're always sinking. Like everything is always sinking in hell, but at an extremely slow pace. So as to be like, I don't know, like a gravitational force or something. It was just so weird because I would notice it at times, and then other times I wouldn't really notice it, you know? So there became like, a middle area or something of the experience, and I felt for a little bit like, this is interesting, this is okay. I mean, I could let this go on for a little bit, but then, of course, it got petrifying after that. But, uh, anyways, so, I mean, what demons use is they use symbols to express um, the information that they're trying to give to the person, as well as to try to confuse angels. So the way, like, if they decide to use technology, it's always in something that's spinning, and it's always at an angle. It's never just spinning around in a circle, around like your waist or something. It's always weird. So what I noticed they can be pretty smart, but when I tried to confront one of them, they started to turn it into like black and white around them to the point that it is sort of like a gray cloud. They wanted to hide like almost anything that they know from the people and stuff. It was so weird. But then at times you could see they're smart, or at times you could see they're really strong. So when I was there, I saw groups of people, like Muslims and Jews and Christians and different things like that, and they were all being like tested for what they believed in. So it was really weird. But anyways, going on to the other dream, the weird thing was that that wilderness area started to be overcome by evil as time went along. It would start to take over the animals, and it became disturbing. So the people would leave the wilderness and try to go closer to the city. And then if you went into the city as time went along, it became, I mean, not satanic, but it was really like specific in how people acted, like their culture was really different and weird. And they would kick people out of the city, if they didn't like them, or they didn't want to be like them. After a few weeks, they just kick them out, so they can't get back in. And so, I mean, uh, that was like an unholy city almost. Looking back at it, so it showed you steps in hell, basically. Tophet, Tarragon, the pit. There was a pit, area where the mountains weren't there. And it was like a wilderness, and it was like an unholy city. And, it was like in the shape of a cane, basically, or a C, or a weird seven. It was basically like the map of it, of that. So when I was in hell in a dream, everything moved like the shape of capital, or I mean the shape of a backwards capital C. It would always move around in an angle, never straight, and never just like jumping down like a ladder to go down. It's always weird. It'd always be a slope or it'd be a C shape. So going like right-footed, basically, at an angle. And that's what the position, I noticed a lot of the demons, they started uh, doing similar positions when they fought and they did stuff. It was also at an angle, always at some degree of an angle. Whereas the angels, they were able to go like at a straighter angle when they attacked. So, those are a couple of my dreams. I thought it was, interesting, and I mean, they're both really scary, but I think both of those dreams sort of describe to me things about like hell and stuff like that I didn't really know before, and is definitely starts out not so bad and then it gets worse in the both dreams. So the mapology of it always is the same. So just FYI. Um, oh yeah, another interesting thing, I noticed at one point the demon was bleeding blood, but when the blood came out of him, it would like do weird stuff like disappear or change into something else or a different shape. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And it was scary because I thought that the thing was going to try to fight me, but instead it just kept doing weird stuff for a little bit. So, like, I was eventually able to get out of that, in bad scenarios, in the dream. So it was like a great relief, to take a breath. But in the other one, most people died or they went to their little cliques, areas or whatever, and they usually stayed there. With the only exception that there was hierarchy Christians, I don't know how else to say it, they were basically like in the sky. It was freaking like they were above like the plane of this war scenario that was going on. And they were able to sort of like remote view from to the down below, but the down below would have trouble trying to look or see what was going on above. So it was so weird because it was like they were at war also, but they were in a different place, but they were connected. So, I mean, just like that, there was angels coming down from the top, or trying to, at least for a little bit. And, by the gates and the first quarter of it or something, especially. So, I'm starting to freak my own self out now, so I'm going to end the video, but, that was my attempt to make an interesting video. And, hope you like it. Leave a comment if you want. Okay, bye-bye.